Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. I've got a really easy and quick project for you to do. This is a ready-made tablecloth. I purchased it at Walmart. It's a really large one and I have a hard time finding large ones because they seem to go fast. This is 60 inches by 102 inches and it was, I think, I don't remember exactly, maybe $15. A really good bargain. You can also find these at places like Bed Bath & Beyond. The difference between Bed Bath & Beyond and Walmart is the edges on the Bed Bath & Beyond tablecloths are not finished very well. They're very rough. These are already hemmed, but I want to cover up the hem with a very decorative edge. And that's where this jelly roll comes into play. I'm going to use it to cover the edge. So this is a really simple thing to do. You can get these at Walmart, but again, not all Walmart stores carry fabric. And I noticed when I bought the jelly roll, they were moving fast out of the store. They're very, very popular. You can get jelly rolls at quilt fabric stores and other internet fabric stores, including Amazon.com. So for $20, around $20, you're going to have a very, very beautiful tablecloth. So let's get started. As I unrolled my jelly roll, I decided that some of the strips I was not going to use because it didn't quite have the color that I was going for in this. But I liked these three, and I have leftover strips from other jelly rolls. I went through those, and that's what this is. I've already cut these up into 8.5-inch strips, so I'm going to show you how to do that. When you unroll these, your selvage ends are going to be wrinkled because it's been bunched up there in the center of the roll. So I highly recommend you press the ends out first and then stack them all. Now, normally I would never stack 4 strips together like this, but because the accuracy is not that important, that everything just is absolute perfect, that's why I've stacked it like this, because it's going to go much faster. Cut the selvage ends off first. So pull your selvage ends past a line on your cutting mat, line your ruler up, and then cut. Make sure your blade is really sharp. Move over 8.5 inches. Now you can cut yours any length if you want. I just decided to make mine 8.5. And then cut. Go over 8.5 inches again. And then cut. And you can save these ends for another project. Place them in the order that you want to stitch them in. So you would take one from the first 2 stacks, bring front sides together, and stitch a 1/4 inch seam. Then take the next one and add it on, bring front sides together, and stitch a 1/4 inch, and then add this one on. After you've added this one on, go back here, take one from this pile, then this one, then this one, then this one. After you've stitched all the pieces together, then press your seams open. This will lay a lot flatter if you do that when you stitch it onto your tablecloth. Then fold this in half and press the entire length of the strip. If you have purchased a tablecloth that has not been finished on the edges, in other words, it doesn't have a hem, this has a folded hem. But if yours does not, you don't need to worry about this next step. What you have here is if this is already a finished edge, it's folded over in hem, you have a couple of decisions to make. You can either unstitch all of this and then iron it all out, or you can just cut this hem off and then you don't have to worry about anything. For me, this isn't that thick. I'm just going to stitch my binding right over it. Now the width of this current hem is 1/4 of an inch. It's very narrow. So I'm going to stitch 3/8 of an inch. So place your binding strip, 8-10 inches from the corner down here. Don't start in the corner. And then you're going to go over from this raw edge end of the binding, about 6 inches or so. And you're going to begin stitching 3/8 of an inch seam. Now don't pin this whole strip on and then stitch. Just lay it down and stitch, and then straighten it out as you go along. It'll go along a lot faster that way. Before you stitch too far, just stitch a few inches and then test it out a little bit. Take it and roll it over to the back and make sure it's going to cover the hem on the back. Okay, if it doesn't, then narrow your seam here a little bit. You need to make adjustments because I don't know what tablecloth you've bought and what kind of edge and how it's finished. So you need to test it out and make sure everything's going to fit. As you're approaching your first corner, you want to stop whatever the distance is of your seam allowance. If you did 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, then you would stop 3/8 of an inch from this edge. If it was 1/4 inch, then stop 1/4 of an inch from this edge. Take it out of your machine and then pull the binding strip straight out like that to where it's even with the edge of the tablecloth. Then put your finger or thumb there, fold it over to where it looks like this. You have this little folded corner here. I would place a pin there to hold it until you placed it back under your presser foot. And then go under your presser foot and begin stitching just like you did on the first side. So every time you come to a corner, fold it like that. When you're stitching around corners, if you find the seam on the binding strip is very near the corner, that's not going to be good for you. So you're going to need to get rid of this, because if you try to fold and stitch around the corner, it's going to be very thick. So I want this seam to come over to about here. So I'm going to cut some of this off. And then I'm just going to cut this off and bring these two ends together and stitch a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, and then finger press that seam open and continue stitching around the corner. You've just finished coming around your last corner and you're approaching where you started. So overlap the two ends, and you're going to overlap by about 1/2 inch, no more than 1/2 inch. And I'm just eyeballing it because I've done this so many times, I know how wide it is. And cut this off. Then open the strips up, bring back sides together, and I'm pinning it because there's a lot of stuff here now that you're holding on to. Stitch a 1/4 of an inch seam along here, then finger press the seam open, fold it back, and finish stitching it along the edge. At your ironing board, fold the binding over this way, and with your iron, push against this seam, pressing this seam going out and away from the center of the tablecloth. Turn your tablecloth over to the back side and fold the binding over to the back. Make sure this folded edge comes past your stitch line. And one of the reasons why I want to pin on this tablecloth, because it's really big, is my right hand doesn't close, so I need all the help I can get. So that's why I like to pin so much, but I get better results also. So you're going to pin. Now I only pin one side at a time and then stitch it down. Here's how you're going to fold and pin your corners. Make sure you have a pin on one side about 1 inch away, and about 1.5 inches away have another pin. Then take a straight pin, and I'm going to turn this just a little bit. Press down, push out to the side over here, fold it over, and pin. And then you have a nice folded mitered corner. So fold all of your corners like that. When it's time to turn it over, like I said, I pin one side at a time because it's way too many pins for me. So then stitch in the ditch. That's where the binding and the tablecloth come together, and you're stitching right in the seam. So you're going to stitch on the tablecloth but not on the binding. So stitch it down that way. Now if you turn it over and you find that your stitches did not catch the lower edge of your binding, it's because you didn't pull it far enough past the stitch line. So that's what's really important. For more tablecloth projects, play this video to the very end where you will see a green screen and then click on the links. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, would you please click on the old thumbs up button and then click on share to share this video with all your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click on that red subscribe button down there in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Don't forget to click on the little bell and enter your email address so that you receive future email notifications about my latest video. If you're not receiving those notifications, make sure you go to your phone or your tablet, like your iPad, and go to settings and make sure you set notifications in the on position. I'm Cheryl. This is Manny. See you next time, and happy sewing!